looking at this changing Middle East and how the power structure has changed and how the Arabs have become somewhat weaker, the question, of course, rises for Israel always, in these circumstances, what is it that Israel can or cannot do in reference to the Palestinian question? Israel has just gone to war with Hamas in Gaza, a war which has naturally made peacemaking between Israel and the Palestinians considerably more difficult. But one has to recall that those that Israel went to peace with, Hamas, was an organization that does not recognize Israel at all, and was seen by Israel as an Iranian outpost, an Iranian proxy, a kind of Iranian defense position sitting on Israel's southern border. So it was very important for Israel to challenge Hamas, not only because of the rocketry into Israel, but to challenge Hamas as this Iranian position sitting on Israel's southern front. Having inflicted enormous damage on Hamas and on the Palestinians in Gaza, does this open an avenue for a peace process with the Palestinians, looking not only at what has happened between Israel and the Palestinians, but also looking at the new government that is about to be formed in Israel? It would seem very difficult for a peace process to take off successfully with an influential Hamas on the Palestinian side and a right-wing government in power in Israel. And the way things look at the moment, an optimistic view about the peace process does not seem to be likely or in place. But Israel has to ask itself not only whether there are moderates in power on the Palestinian side. Israel has to ask itself what its long-term historical interests are. Israel is a project with an ideological objective. Israel is not just some other state. Israel was founded for a purpose, for the Jews to exercise their right to self-determination like other peoples, for the Jews to have a state they could call their own, for Israel to be the nation state of the Jewish people. If Israel rules over more Arabs than Jews, Israel will not be able to be the state of the Jewish people. Israel therefore has some very difficult choices to make in the near future. Israel has to think about how to maintain itself as the state of the Jewish people, even if the Arab population around Israel, the Palestinians, are unwilling or unready for a compromise. Israel has a vested interest in a two-state solution, which means a state for the Jews and a state for the Palestinians, one next door to the other, living in peace. That is the long-term Israeli objective. But Hamas does not share that vision. Hamas believes in a one-state solution, in a state where eventually the Arabs will become the majority, the Palestinians will be the majority, in the area from the Mediterranean Sea to the Jordan River. And in that one state, the Jews will be turned into a minority and will lose their state, will lose their capacity to have a sovereign political entity under their control. Therefore, the Israelis were driven some years ago, 2005, when Arik Sharon was prime minister, to withdraw unilaterally from Gaza. And Israel withdrew unilaterally from Gaza, not in the naive belief that the rockets would stop. Israel withdrew unilaterally from Gaza so as not to rule over the 1.5 million Palestinians who live there. Israel reoccupied Gaza just a month or so ago and withdrew unilaterally immediately again, even though the rockets did not stop completely, because the reasoning, the logic, is the same. Israel cannot fulfill its historical purpose unless it maintains a state in which there is a powerful, long-standing Jewish majority. The Jews can be a minority anywhere, from Melbourne to Toronto and back again. The only purpose of maintaining the state of Israel is to have that one place on earth where the Jews are the majority, and therefore capable of exercising their right to self-determination. Therefore, Israel may have to withdraw from territory in the West Bank too, even without a peace agreement, if it wishes to preserve its historical purpose. This Hamas knows only too well. And Hamas therefore does not share Israel's sense of urgency in establishing a two-state solution. And if Israelis wait for a negotiated settlement, they may wait for a very long time. They may have to wait for too long a time. And Hamas feels that time is on their side. And if there is no settlement, eventually a one-state reality will emerge in that area between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River, where the Jews will be the minority. So for that reason, and for that reason alone, Israel may have to think of redeploying in the West Bank, of withdrawing from considerable territory in the West Bank, unilaterally again, not necessarily for the peace it desires, but to preserve Israel as the state of the Jewish people. And that is Israel's real dilemma, the need to withdraw even if peace will not be offered in exchange.